Yes, I grew up in a really great place.
Did everybody know each other kind of in this town?
Yes, very well.
My grandfather owned a property across the road. Down a hill was a nice little stream, and it had some trout in it, so I had a chance to fish for trout and had a great time playing there during the summers.
What kind of stuff would kids do for fun in the summers?
Oh, kick the can.
Larchmont was just marvelous. It was halfway between New York City and Connecticut on the Long Island Sound, so we spent a lot of time swimming and everything else.
Lost track, you'd yell and they'd answer, and then they'd try to find you all over this town of 500 people.
I lived on my bicycle, I think.
Were you the kind of kid that liked school?
I enjoyed school, yep.
No, I don't think I was paying much attention there.
Among my peers, I was kind of known as the class clown, and the faculty thought of me as the village idiot.
I was a type of kid that I was never late for any class. And two of my buddies knew this. So one day they unpurposely held me out of class at 1:15 in the afternoon so Hartman couldn't go around and say that he hadn't been late for class.
Were the classes big in school? I mean,
Not in the country school I went to. There's no, and then the one teacher taught all the classes.
Well, I was athletic.
I played ice hockey, and I was pretty good at it, I thought.
Did the Depression affect your family?
Overall, yes. I bet it didn't affect the way I lived, I don't think. My father and my uncle, who had been tremendous successes, they came from Russia in 1899. Just before the Depression, I think they owned 22 buildings in New York City, and they lost every one of them.
Depression affected us deeply, and it's something that I'll never forget as long as I live. We were a working class family when there was no work. And in those days, there was no help from anybody. It was from your own family or whatever, your own resources.
My father and mother were very, frugal people. That the signs of the Depression were all around us. I used to wonder about neighborhood kids that went to the same school as I did, and their family was on the welfare because they all had the same winter jacket or the same boots. These were things that were gratis from the city of Springfield. We thought of ourselves as a little bit different because we always had a Sears and Roebuck jacket or something that my father bought and paid for. So we were a little bit fortunate. We never really were hungry or suffered anything of the kind, but times were just very difficult.
We had a big family, and during the Depression, we never had a car, to give you an example.
did not own a house. We moved from place to place, couldn't pay the rent. We lived down by the railroad tracks, and we stole coal off the trains that came through there to heat the house. My clearest memory is the thousands of young men drifting around the United States on freight trains. They would come to my mother's house, knock on the door, and she would make them homemade bread sandwiches.
Honolulu, Hawaii. We have witnessed this morning a distant view a brief battle off Pearl Harbor and a severe bombing of Pearl Harbor by enemy planes, undoubtedly Japanese. The city of Honolulu has also been attacked and considerable damage done. This battle has been going on for nearly 3 hours. It is no joke, it is a real war. There has been fierce fighting going on in the air and on the sea. Mr. Kennedy, I interrupt this just a second, please. This is the telephone company, the chief operator. Yes? We tried to get through on an emergency call. Could you tell me? Well, we're talking to New York now.
The commander of Harbor Defenses ordered all Coast Artillery officers and soldiers of the Harbor Defenses are ordered to report to their stations immediately. All leaves and furloughs are canceled by order of the commanding general. Another bulletin, the Secretary of War has just announced that all military personnel on active duty is to appear Monday in uniform. Berlin. A German spokesman declared tonight there could be no reaction from Germany to the announced Japanese air attack on Pearl Harbor until all sides of the case were at hand.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
I was drafted in February of '43 with about 160 some of my classmates from our area.
When I got to be a senior in high school, I got my parents to sign for me, and I enlisted in the Air Force.
How old were you then?
17.
I had always wanted to fly.
Where did that come from?
Oh, I used to build model airplanes.
In them days you could buy cheap balsa kits, and I loved to make airplanes.
When I went for the interview, a buddy of mine, he said, some guy told me that if you want to get in the Air Corps, that's the place to get. He said, tell me you like to build model airplanes. So when the guy said to me, what's your hobby? I said, oh, I like to build model airplanes. And sure enough.
And they asked me, questionnaires asked me what I wanted to do in the service, and I volunteered. I said, I'd like to be in the medical corps or in the infantry. And then at the end of the day, they told us that we were going into the Air Force. And I said, I don't want to fly. I said I would prefer to be on the ground. But they said, well, you're going into the Air Force. And that's how my Air Force career started.
I'm a farm boy, not educated. My blue work shirt on, my overalls, my big brogans, go into that office. And what I didn't know was that up to the time that we went in the service, the only ones that could fly an Army Air Force airplane was the West Pointers. They had to have the pupils of their eyes 2 3/4 inches apart. Their ears had to lay 10 degrees on their head. Their teeth had to fall in line, perfect, 20-degree arch. The only ones that could fly, because you had to have a engineering education to be a pilot. Here I am standing in this recruiting office, and the sergeant won't even look at me. And I'm standing there for about 10 minutes. He's looking down at his desk, right? And finally he looks up and says, what do you want? I said, I want to join the Air Force. And he says, what makes you think you can be a flyer? And I said, well, I want to be a flyer. I want to be a pilot. And he said, how much education have you had? And I said, 9th grade. I can read and write and do ciphers. And he says, my God, you've got to have a college equivalency. You've got to pass a college equivalency test. What him and I didn't know was that the minute they had read this report, they'd sent letters to all those recruitment offices. He said to me, what kind of work did you do? And I said, I was a plowboy. I worked behind a team of mules, Tom and Jerry. And there was an upset chair in the office and a big yell, and out comes a little old second lieutenant, and he says to that sergeant, don't talk to these plowboys like that. We need them. Had that letter in his hand. Says, come on in here, son. Took me in there, and he said, throw the piece of paper out there on the desk, and he offered me a cigarette. He said, sign that. Put your name, address, and we know you don't have a telephone. Put your name and address so we can get in touch with you. You're going to be a pilot in the Air Force. So I signed the letter, leaned back in the chair. He straightened his chair up, sat down at his desk, pulled the drawer open, reached in, got a big old rubber stamp, pulls it out, hits it down on a pad, slams it down on that piece of paper, and to this day I don't know whether it said PB for plowboy or BP for bomber pilot.
Or both.
That's how I got in the Air Force.